What I want to do this section, this is talking about truth. What will you say? What's the title of this section? What do I have in my outline there? I don't have it in my notes. Let's rock somebody's worldview. How to do that. Thank you, Pastor. Good, Pat. Listen, this is what you want to look for. Just some very, very practical ways to look for these kinds of things. And again, be tough-minded, tender-hearted. Tender-hearted, tough-minded. Because we want to be tough here. What to look for when you're talking to an unbeliever. 3 things that we're going to point out. There's a lot more. Again, this thing that we're doing this morning is simply scratching the surface. But you understand? I want you to understand the main points that we're trying to get through for you. 3 big things to look out for, to notice, and to point out lovingly and gently, but you point it out nonetheless. So we're tough-minded, right? Tender-hearted, tough-minded. Why? Because these are 3 key intellectual sins, right? We talked about being darkened in our mind and our understanding. This is a way of being intellectually dishonest, faulty thinking and faulty reasoning. We want to be reasoning rightly and correctly. Even we do that even from the Lord. That's it. There's one way to reason correctly. And that's a big deal. Otherwise, we're sinning in our thoughts and our words and our deeds intellectually. Because we're bringing arguments forth that aren't honest and true down the line. So it's a big deal. So when you're talking to somebody, look for these things, right? And then bring them out gently, but bring them out nonetheless. First of all, is arbitrary. People aren't allowed to be arbitrary. And if you're going to have an intellectual and honest discussion, and honesty demands this, you can't be arbitrary if you're trying to present a rational basis for what you believe. Right? What do I mean by being arbitrary? 4 subheadings, real quick. Well, being arbitrary, we'll look at that. Secondly, the second intellectual sin is inconsistency. You can't contradict yourself. You're not being rational if you contradict yourself. And the third one, it's a little bit different. You probably haven't heard this. It's the preconditions for intelligibility. It's the preconditions for making an argument. What has to be true? We've been doing this all along, showing that people rely on the Lord, but we'll flesh that out just a little bit. The things you rely on, you take for granted. Let's start with being arbitrary, right? This is subject to the individual. That's what it means. There are 4 subsections to this. First of all, if you're talking to somebody and they give you your opinion, their own opinion. Mere opinion's number 1. That's what a person thinks, feels, believes, without offering evidence to support their assertions. Don't let people get away with that. That's intellectually dishonest. Opinions carry no intellectual weight whatsoever. We're so nice, we're so gracious and stuff that people will say, well, I think, my opinion is, okay, that's cool. Not necessarily. It's not necessarily cool, right? You got to give me a reason why. You have to back that up. You got to tell me why you think that. Right? So when you hear people say, well, I think, I feel, I believe, it's my opinion that, what? Right? I think everybody goes to heaven. Okay, why? I don't know, I just do. It's just my opinion. Oh, okay, wonderful. That's not wonderful, man. You got to challenge that. Right? We let people off the hook too easily. So why? I need more evidence. I need proof. I need reasons. And then we could talk about those reasons, right? But mere opinion, people think, especially in this day and age, it's just say, well, I think this and I think that. Okay, but to be intellectually honest, you have to tell me why and give reasons, substantiate that, and then we examine those reasons. Does it make sense? Does it comport? So don't let people just get away with saying, I feel, I believe, my opinion is. Right? The second one under arbitrary is relativism. That's a big one. How much? None. Okay, I'm over time. All right, relativism. We'll go quickly with this. But this is a big one in our day and age. This is huge. The idea that there's no absolute truth, no ultimate standard. And I don't even know how to deal with this one. This is becoming very prominent in our society, in our culture. This is it. It's made great inroads. And this is one of the greatest dangers, even to the faith, to Christianity, because people just, whatever's true for you is okay. We're seeing the outworking. Today I feel like a guy. Tomorrow I feel like a girl. I don't know what I'm going to feel like the third day, but whatever I do, that's true for me. Right? There's no absolute truth. There's no absolute standard. And that's very dangerous. And that's being arbitrary. So we do have a video. I do want you to check this out. It does a nice job of explaining relativism. So check this out. It's about 5 minutes.
Have you ever tried to persuade someone that your belief was true, and that person responds, "Well, there is no truth," or "It might be true, not for me"? It's a pretty frustrating experience. This way of thinking, called relativism, can impede any sort of rational dialogue. The view that truth, that is what is real, is relative to the individual is what some scholars call I say relativism. As U.S. Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote in the 1992 landmark case Planned Parenthood versus Casey, quote, "At the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life," close quote. In other words, in I say relativism, the individual determines what is real, rather than what is real. In order to engage in any sensible discussion about truth, we must first overcome the obstacle of relativism. So, response. First, we can ask, is it absolutely true that there is no absolute truth? If a relativist responds yes, well then the statement itself is an absolute truth. But this is a contradiction. It's absolute truth. There is no absolute truth. Plain absurdity. Now, relativist answers our question, no. The statement, there is no absolute truth, is only relatively true. It's true relative to my system of beliefs. But this is problematic as well. Using the verb is implies an assertion about the objective order of things, conformity to reality. But this is like saying it's absolutely true that there is no absolute truth, which, as we already saw, is a contradiction. Furthermore, a relativist's claim that the statement, there is no absolute truth, is true relative to his system of beliefs makes the claim trivial. If a relativist simply means by this, others don't, well then it doesn't tell us anything we didn't already know. This is just my opinion, take it or leave it, but then there's no need to pay any attention to it. To put it frankly, if a relativist is not, who cares? Why should we be concerned with such trivial matters? A second way we can respond to relativism is to show how the logic leads to absurdities. For example, in a recent video, College Kids Say the Darndest Things, released by the Family Policy Institute of Washington, Joseph Backholm, the executive director, interviewed 8 students from the University of Washington about so-called gender identity. Backholm, a white 5'9" male, asked what they would say if he told them he were a female. Every student was quick to say it would be okay. Backholm asked the students a series of questions that lead to his identifying as a 6'5" Chinese woman. Although a few of the students were a bit hesitant to affirm Backholm's assertion that he's 6'5" and Chinese, they concluded it would be within his right to identify as he pleases. Now, you laugh or cry. Perhaps the students would have seen the absurdity of the relativistic logic if Backholm asked them, what if I say I'm a cat? Now, claims are outside the realm of possibility, check out the story of 20-year-old Nano from Oslo, Norway, a young woman who claims she's a cat trapped in a human body. As she explains in an interview with a Norwegian reporter, she was born in the wrong species. The absurdities that follow from I say relativism continue. Consider Chloe Jennings White, a PhD with degrees from Cambridge and Stanford universities, who identifies as a paraplegic. She rides around in a wheelchair with leg braces, intending to one day have her sciatic nerve severed to paralyze her legs. Should we accept and celebrate Chloe's desire to be a paraplegic? What about Nano's claim that she's a cat? If we follow the logic that has led our culture to accept and celebrate people's desire to be a member of the opposite sex, well then we must accept and celebrate people's desires to be paraplegic or a different animal. No matter how a relativist slices the pie, one ends up with a contradiction, triviality, and absurdities, making relativism an unreasonable worldview. By embracing relativism, our culture has reached the point of insanity. There can be no false perception of reality because there is no reality to perceive, only a reality to create. Can our society function with such a worldview? It's doubtful. For Bruce Howard, thanks for watching.
That was very good presentation on that. You see that? But that's what we're up against, right? In many ways. What can we do? We bring forth the truth. If everybody's right, then nobody can be wrong. And so we want to get to that. So be aware of that. And that's a tough one because that's really permeated the culture. But again, it's not our job to change hearts. We bring forth the facts and do what we're called to do in that regard. Two more. Conjecture, ignorant conjecture. These are things to look for. When a person hasn't really studied a subject but offers a sound, like what seems to be a reasonable answer, that's what you need to be aware of too. Some people talk about the Bible and the reliability of Scripture. And somebody else, you'll hear this. Well, look, man, it just figures that the Bible has been translated and copied so many times, it can't be close to the original. It just makes sense. It just figures. Now, that kind of thing is called conjecture or ignorant conjecture. They make a statement that seems reasonable, but they really haven't studied the subject. Because if you would study the subject on biblical translation and copies, you see it's very, very, very accurate for the most part. And we really could say we have God's Word, but that takes some study. But that's another way. I had one guy say to me one time, for all we know, King James had people write the Bible so the slaves wouldn't rebel against them. And one of my sisters got really scared of that because the Bible is not real because of that. No, it sounded like it could be reasonable, but he hadn't studied the facts. So look out for that as well. And then one more under arbitrary, that's unargued bias. Guys, this is when people just take things for granted. And this is a big one. And if we do have time, we'll try to deal with this in the third session. But things are simply dismissed out of hand, right? So for Christians, what's simply dismissed out of hand by other people? They don't even think that it's true. Miracles, right? We need miracles. Bible's filled with miracles. Bible contains miracles, no doubt about it. The supernatural element of the Bible, what do people say? Everybody knows. In this day and age, axe heads don't float, virgins don't conceive, water doesn't turn into wine, the dead aren't brought back to life. It's inconceivable to their minds, so they don't even consider it. They're not even going to give due to it. Like, it's just, hey, everybody knows this doesn't happen, right? We need to take this seriously because these are tough to defend. We're defending seemingly impossible at that point. But these are things that we need to be aware of.